Immortals of Aveum is a brand new IP developed by Ascendant Studios and published by EA. It's a first-person shooter, but instead of guns, you do magic spells. The game uses Unreal Engine 5 and is one of the most demanding games out there. It runs poorly on even some of the best spec PCs. If you've got it on console though, it's not too bad, and they've taken the time to optimize the game. Since it's so demanding, it's only available on the current gen Xbox Series S, Series X, and PS5. It's not going to be coming out on the older gen PS4 and Xbox One. The game's been getting mixed reviews ranging from 6 out of 10 to 8 out of 10 in most cases, and I think it falls somewhere between that. It's actually a fun game to play. I mean, I had a lot of fun for a couple hours. I like how it's unique and has elements we haven't seen before. It's got fast-paced first-person action that keeps moving at a really good pace. There's a fair bit of variety to the boss fights that do keep things interesting. There's also a fair bit of spells and character progression that gives you flexibility in how you want to play and in how you want to take down enemies. There's no multiplayer modes here, no player versus player, no player versus evil. Once you're done with the story, that's it. There's no real replayability here at all. I guess they spent too much of the budget hiring top Hollywood talent. We got Darren Barnett as Jack and Gina Torres as Lieutenant Kirkin. Now that focus on the story with a star cast is intriguing. It's one of the better stories I've seen in a video game. You can't skip the cutscenes on console. I'm assuming that's deliberate. The developers really do want you to follow the narrative. So while the game can be fun, it might not be worth the full price tag this time of the year when there's so many more insane games coming out next month. So just choose to spend your money wisely here. The good thing here is that it's a brand new IP that's headed in the right direction. I want to see Ascendant Studios add some more meat and replayability to future games in the series, and maybe add some multiplayer modes while they're at it, player versus player or even co-op mode. If you do decide to pick this one up, you're gonna need 57 gigabytes of space on the Series S and X and about 60 gigabytes of space on PlayStation 5. Starting up the game from dashboard is the fastest on PlayStation 5, taking 27 seconds. The Series S and X are a little bit slower, they take 42 seconds. Xbox does have a trick up its sleeve, quick resume, and that's really meant for single player games like this one. You can get back in the game in only 5 seconds on the Series S. It takes 10 seconds on the Series X. PS5's answer to quick resume is activity cards. That saves you 7 seconds versus loading the game up normally. Immortals of Aveum is a hit and miss when it comes to the graphics. At times the game looks beautiful, other times it can look a little outdated and blurry. The game has no graphic mode selection on console. There is no selecting between performance and quality mode. There's just the one default, which I guess is performance mode because on all three consoles it targets 60 FPS. Visually the game looks blurry on the Xbox Series S when you compare it to the Series X and PS5. I mean, they're using FSR 2.1 here to really scale up and down the resolution. The Series S is perhaps upscaling to 1080p, but the native resolution is well below 720p. It's just super blurry. And the big difference is not just only the gameplay, but even the cutscenes. I mean, the cutscenes aren't pre-recorded. They seem to be live action. And here you can clearly see the difference between the Series X and the more powerful X and PS5. The game just looks a lot worse on the less powerful Series S. Another issue on console, especially on the Xbox Series S, is the field of view. There is no field of view slider on console, and the default is just too small. Because of the small field of view, quite a few players on console have been reporting nausea and motion sickness. It's a problem on all three consoles, but it's especially bad on the Series S. You can see here the difference between the three consoles. While the Series X and PS5 field of view is identical, the Series S has the smaller value. I guess all of these low settings are for one reason, and that's to deliver a 60 FPS experience on the Series S as well as other consoles. Yeah, 60 FPS is really important for a first-person shooter, but this game really is too demanding and shows the issues of the Series S hardware. The target frame rate is 60 FPS for the entire experience, the gameplay as well as the cutscenes. While the Series S maintains 60 FPS most of the time, there are dips. With certain cutscenes, I saw dips into the low 50s, even high 40s at times. During the gameplay, the Series S, you can expect dips into the mid 50s when the action gets intense in certain areas. Now, Series S has another problem. There's actually a lot of missing graphics and a lot of missing objects. Coming up are some side-by-side comparisons, and you're really gonna notice the difference, the missing objects. As you've seen already, the game looks a lot better on the more powerful Series X and PlayStation 5. Now, I zoomed in 4 times here, but you don't even have to do that to see the difference between the Series S and X. Now, between the Series X and PS5, the zooming in does help see a difference. The PlayStation 5 is clearly sharper here. Let's look at another example. Even in this shot, you can see the huge difference between the Series S and the X and PS5 without even zooming in. Once I do zoom in, look at that. Again, the PS5 is sharper and has higher details compared to the Series X. So Xbox Series X does have a lower resolution than PS5, but how does it perform? Well, the Series X does target 60 FPS and gets to that target most of the time, but there are drops. The drops aren't as bad as what we saw on the Series S though. You can expect to see an average of 54 FPS during some of the cutscenes and the high 50s during the gameplay. The PlayStation 5 actually shows more frame rate drops compared to the Series X, as you can see in this particular section. I'm going to show more side-by-side comparison so you get a good idea or a good sample size of the 3 consoles, but I guess the higher resolution PS5 means a lower frame rate. Overall, the PS5 has the best resolution, followed by the Series X, and as expected, the Series S is the worst resolution. Series S for sure is lower than 720p, Series X is closer to 900p, and PS5 is closer to 1080p native. The frame rate is the most stable on the Xbox Series X. On the PlayStation 5 and Series S, I saw similar frame rate numbers, but of course on PlayStation 5, the game looks much better. Now, some console players might want to play mouse and keyboard with this first-person shooter, and surprisingly, I could actually get that to work on the Series S and X, but it did not work on the PS5, so that's another advantage with the Xbox. You do have mouse and keyboard support. For the rest of the video, I have some more side-by-side gameplay, and I will have more detailed frame rate tests. I'm going to try to show the frame rate counter on all 3 consoles, and the audio in the video is of course from the actual game, and I'm not overlaying some music on top of it, so enjoy.